Relevant time is not irrelevant and cannot safely be ignored. At the end of the lesson, remember 3 words: enter, arrest, and leave. Enter, arrest, and leave. It's rather like a warrant. You enter, you arrest, and you leave. Question: what time do you arrive at the police station? So let's go into the front office. Members of the public are sitting on the left. You look to your right, and there is a PC behind the counter. You nod to him, he nods back, he presses a few buttons, and you go through a door marked Police Officers Only. As you go through the door, you have arrived at the police station. If you're driving into the backyard, and on the left there are members of the public, cars everywhere, you come up to a barrier that says Police Vehicles Only. The barrier goes up. As you go over the line, you have arrived at the police station. The first part is you are arrested outside England and Wales. Outside England and Wales. The relevant time starts 24 hours after you enter England or Wales. 24 hours after you enter. Or the time of arrival if it is earlier. Time of arrival if it is earlier. So let us suppose then you're coming from Scotland. It could be Switzerland because it's outside England or Wales. But you come over the border into England, and the first place you come to is Newcastle. So you go into the police station, you arrive at the police station within half an hour of entering England or Wales. That means the relevant time clock begins the moment you arrive at Newcastle Police Station, which is 30 minutes after you entered England or Wales. If, however, you were travelling to, say, Dover, so you enter England from the top end, Scotland, and you stop over in Birmingham, and you arrive in London, and there's fire, and there's water, and there's hell to pay, so it takes you more than 24 hours until you come to Kent. You are still 2 hours away from Dover. Once you've been in England or Wales for 24 hours, the clock begins to tick. Tick-tock, tick-tock. 24 hours after you enter. So if you still have 2 hours to run before you get to Dover, then you arrive at Dover having lost 2 hours of your precious time. So from the time you enter England or Wales, add 24 hours and the clock begins to tick. If you arrive earlier, the clock begins to tick at the time you arrive. Now, if you are arrested in one force area for an offence in a second force area. So let us suppose then you're nicked in Newcastle and you're wanted by the Met. Newcastle have nicked a body for the Met. The clock begins to tick 24 hours after the time of arrest, 24 hours after the time of arrest, or the earlier time if you arrive earlier, so that you get nicked in Newcastle. Newcastle ring you in the Met and say, we've got a body here for you. What time was he arrested, you ask, and they say 12 noon. Now at 12 noon tomorrow that clock will begin to tick. So get yourself up to Newcastle and get back before it starts to tick. If it takes you more than 24 hours to get him back, the clock will begin to tick 24 hours after the time of his arrest. So be quicker than 24 hours. 24 hours after the time of arrest, if arrested by one force, for a second force. And the third part of this is you are arrested by one force who want you for a job. One force arrests you for a burglary, but you're also wanted by other forces. So let us then pretend you're nicked in Newcastle and you're wanted by the Met. Newcastle can keep you for as long as they want to keep you, so it may be 24 hours, it may be an extension to 36 hours, it may be a 4-day lie down, it doesn't matter. You don't worry about what time your clock ticks until he leaves the place where he is detained. So the moment he leaves Newcastle, you then add 24 hours and the clock for the Met begins to tick, unless you arrive earlier. So if he is nicked in Newcastle, He's kept there for a few days. And then at 12 noon on Friday, he is released. Then at 12 noon on Saturday, the Metropolitan Police relevant time clock is going to begin to tick. So you have to get to Newcastle and get back before it begins to tick. If it takes you more than 24 hours to get him back to the Met, then the clock begins to tick and you will have lost time. So if it takes you 26 hours to get back, then you have lost 2 hours of your relevant time of keeping him. If you bring a prisoner back to your own force area from an away force, so let us suppose he's nicked in Newcastle and you're bringing him back to the Metropolitan Police. The clock begins to tick when you get back to the force area where the offence is being investigated, and it ticks at the first police station you stop at. So, when you get back to your own force area, don't stop at any police stations for a nice cup of tea or see your mates. Go back to the police station where the offence is being investigated, because when you stop at any police station in your force area, the clock begins to tick. Questioning about the offence. Do not question about the offence. If you do, the clock begins to tick. So that if somebody is arrested by the Metropolitan Police in Newcastle, and he is asked questions about the Metropolitan Police offence in Newcastle, then the clock begins to tick from the moment he is asked questions about the offence. It is not a question, however, to ask about identification. Is your name John Smith? Do you live at number 17? Do you drive ABC 123? These are not questions. These are forms of identification and do not amount to questioning. Hospitalisation. If a prisoner leaves the police station to go to hospital, the clock stops ticking, so that he's been in police detention for 3 hours and he needs to go to hospital. When he leaves the police station, the clock stops ticking, so long as he is free from questioning. Whilst he is at the hospital, the clock stops ticking, so long as he is free from questioning. On the way back to the police station, the clock stops ticking, so long as he is free from questioning. When you return to the police station, the same clock begins to tick again, so that if he's been in police detention for 3 hours and he goes off to the hospital for 3 hours, on his return, the same clock starts to tick from the 3-hour position. Surrender to the police station. Where an individual has been bailed by the police, let us say he's been in custody for 17 hours, he is then bailed to reappear in a couple of weeks' time. When he reappears in a couple of weeks' time, the same clock continues to tick. So if he had been in custody for 17 hours, you then only have 7 hours left to deal with him.